Hello everyone, welcome to Under the Wing. I am your host Andrew Wingard, and I am extremely grateful that you are sharing your time with me today. I am excited that I get the opportunity to share with you the experiences and stories from all walks of life. Gather around and let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Under the Wing. I'm your host Andrew Wingard, and today we have an educator, administrator. I'm so excited because this is my first educator that I'm having on, and I wanted to do my first episode with an educator, but unfortunately the timing and different things were going on with a friend, and so I'm excited to have Miss Nelda Sims with me here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump right in, Ms. Sims. Tell us a little bit about Nelda Sims, and you're retired now.
I'm retired. I'm a retired high school principal.
We were talking briefly that in retirement you've been busy, and they say once you retire you never really stop going, and so it's
Yeah, I haven't stopped. I've been very busy. I collaborated with a group that wrote a book. Mm-hmm. I established a scholarship in honor of my parents. I've been traveling. It has been a pandemic, but I've still been traveling.
Yeah.
I've taken swimming lessons. I meet up with old colleagues for lunch or breakfast. It's busy. I'm loving it because even though I'm busy, I'm just doing whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Enjoying life.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying life.
That's it. So tell the listeners a little bit about Nelda and kind of where you're from. And, you mentioned you were an educator, kind of what your journey there.
Yeah. Well, I'm from originally from Youngstown, Ohio. I'm the second oldest of 9 children. And I grew up with my mom and dad, and these 9 kids. So it was always, there was always action going on there. I married young. I'm married with 2 children. I went back to school. I went to college when I was 30 years old.
Wow.
And so my life changed drastically from that point. But I've always hit the ground running, whatever I did. But that was like a 10-year journey. And my career as an educator started as a paraeducator. I was a paraeducator for 10 years. The 10 years that I was attending college, I was a paraeducator. And I went from that to being a teacher, from that to being an instructional team leader, and then an assistant principal, and then principal. And that is where I retired from. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. Well, I share with everyone, y'all. I appreciate the warmth and hospitality that was given to me in the city of Youngstown. And of course, we met in the city of Youngstown through your generous acts in creating that scholarship in your parents' name. Mm-hmm. And so, what was it like growing up in Youngstown, Ohio?
Youngstown, I grew up in the church, so I probably was a little sheltered. Mm-hmm. So I, as rough as things were, and I did know about some of the things like that, but I think I probably learned more about some of the dangers once I left Youngstown. Because it was, it was just, I grew up until 5th grade, I was on the north side, and then we moved to the south side of Youngstown, and we were like the first Black family on my street. And so so it was, we've always had it, even though my parents, my father was self-employed and he worked, and, he was always working because his thing that he taught us to work hard and take care of your family. So he actually had my brothers working they were boys, and they were going on that truck and they were working. He was a little male chauvinist because he felt like the girls, we were supposed to help in the house and everything. But we had a great, we were always taught to love God and to love family and to take care of each other. Those were the things that they taught us. And that's kind of how we grew up. And so as we got older, we're still very, very close. You know, I'm very, very close with my siblings and everything. And I think it's because that's what they've always taught us to do, that we are supposed to take care of each other. And then as far, we grew up in the church. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've always been, I'm still in the church. I'm still a Christian, and I love the Lord.
Yeah. Amen.
But that's my foundation. That's what we were taught. We always had people at my house. My parents were givers. They loved helping people, and they loved sharing. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to establish the scholarship in their name, because they were givers. They never attended college or anything like that, but they taught us to share what we have with others. And so I wanted that scholarship to be in their name. And the fact that it's for an education major, and somebody,
Right.
I wanted it to reach someone that kind of is going my journey, the journey that I went, starting school, to be a teacher. And I wanted to be someone with, this need the scholarship. And,
Right.
And although my parents, we didn't have much, well, we didn't really know that until after the fact. We didn't have much, but what we did have, we always seen them sharing with others. Yeah. And everybody, and our house was a hangout. It was like we had 9 kids. I don't know why everyone wanted to come in, but it was just that type of that was just that type of place, that type of home.
Wow. Well, I was talking with someone the other day, and we were talking about stories, and I shared with you briefly a little bit before recording, where this podcast came from. And, what I would like you to do, and I know this wasn't one of the questions, so I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. And because I know how much your parents mean to you, and I know how important those stories are to our development as, adults and professionals and so on. And so, do you have a story about your mom and dad that when you look back on and you're like, man, I remember that lesson that I learned from them?
My parents, my mom was from Arkansas. She grew up in Arkansas, and my father was from Alabama.
Okay.
And then they both migrated to Youngstown, first Michigan, then Youngstown. But the thing that we laughed the most about are some of the sayings that they had, that we knew what it meant. We knew what they meant by telling us, but we had no idea where did that even come from, So they still brought some things from the South that they shared with us, different phrases, and which right now I can't even think of. Well, we generally, my siblings and I, we're always, that's one of the ways we keep my parents alive, is something always happens where we remember something that they said, and we say it and we laugh about it and everything. In fact, I tell my brothers, they have all turned into my father already. They're all little TJs. They TJ Jr.,
Yeah.
But they were strict in some ways, in the way that they wanted us to do the right thing. They wanted us to be good citizens, good people, And so one of the things I remember most about my parents is as far as the lessons they taught, lying and stealing were the worst sins you could ever. I mean, you did not want to lie and you did not want to steal, and you didn't want to disrespect. They taught us to respect our parents too, to honor our parents. And so those were some of the things that they really taught, that they really emphasized.
Right.
That you can do anything. If you get locked up, if it's for fighting or anything else, you may have a chance. But if it's for stealing, I'm not even gonna come look at. So, but they were good people. My father especially. My father. He was on dialysis. He had kidney disease for 14 years.
Wow.
He survived for 14 years on that. And I tell people to this day, I've never seen anyone, he never wanted to stop working. I've never seen anyone. Growing up, he worked all the time.
Yeah.
And he was to the point of tears when his health wouldn't allow him to work anymore. But he taught my brother, they all have that work ethic. They work hard. And that's what he taught. He never wanted to quit working. You know how some of us nowadays, and it's time to retire, we can't wait and it's happy and everything. But he never wanted to retire. He never wanted to stop working. And those are just some of the work ethics, some of the principles that they taught me and my siblings is the things that I attributed my success to it, because there were principles, there were things that just decent things that you should do and you should follow. And one of them, as far as especially with my father, is just really working hard.
Yeah.
And of course, my mother used to say, like most mothers, you could do anything you put your mind to. You can do anything you put your mind to. She taught us to work hard, and we could achieve anything. She also taught my sisters and I to to make sure you are independent and you can take care of yourself. You never know what may happen. You take care of yourself. and they taught my brothers, you to work hard, of course, but they also taught my mother taught my brothers how to cook, because she said, you don't know, you may marry somebody that don't know how to cook, so you better know. Like little things that was important to them, but paid off in the end, because they all,
I get it. It sounds a little bit like, my grandfather was from Louisiana, and we kind of live through him now, with those sayings. And I remember one, he would always say, I'll be a blue hand chicken. And so to this day, we don't know what that means, but we think about some of those.
They're hilarious, and we heard them all of our lives. And then, as we gotten older and grown, it's like we just laugh at them because they knew what they meant.
Right. So. Well, not too long ago, you were honored as one of the Penguin Women on the Move, and as you reflect, and we've talked many times about your career and your journey. And so, as you reflect on your time as an educator and administrator, what is one lesson that you learned early on in your career that kind of helped you continue to push through adversity?
I think early on, and even up until this day, how necessary it is to have someone to share your thoughts, your struggles, your challenges, your even your successes and everything. I've always had a mentor or a coach or something that, and I learned even when I first started school, they weren't even necessarily a mentor, but I remember this one English teacher. I was a paraeducator, and I remember this one teacher, a friend of mine, who would even review my papers before I turned them in, or and lots of people who would encourage me. I mean, it was tough going to school at the point that I went to school.
Right. And
so in my career, and even starting my career, it's really, really important to have someone. I believe in mentoring. I believe in, and I try to do that myself with others, but because I think it's really, really important. Education, especially in administration, can be very lonely. It can be tough. And if you don't have it, if you don't have someone to bounce things off, sometimes you can feel pretty alone in that area.
Wow, that's powerful, because I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts not too long ago, and the theme is always it's lonely at the top. And I remember one of the leaders, who I can't remember their name, but he said, if you're lonely at the top, it's because you want to. And like you said, like you made an effort to have people around you.
You have to make an effort. And you do have to seek it out. I agree with that. You have to seek it out, because what happens, some people don't want someone to think that they're vulnerable, or that they don't know something, or they don't know how to do something, and they won't ask. And you have to, because no one knows. You cannot be the smartest one in the room. So, you shouldn't be. You should always be willing to learn and to grow. And that means sometimes having that coach, having that mentor, or even that friend. I remember times when I was working especially as an administrator, sometimes someone would do something or say something, and you want to just really let them have it. And so there were times when I would write that that email and I've had someone read it before I push that send button, because the first one is to get it off your chest, and the second one is to make sure that it's still very professional and that you're handling things in the right way.
Right.
You know.
You mentioned something that I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned the word that I thought was pretty big on that concept of not being alone, and it's seeking. Like you have to seek out, you have to be able to reach out. So there might be someone who's going into administration, or they're going into a leadership position. What advice would you give them if they're not, maybe they're not comfortable seeking out something, or maybe they just don't know how? What advice would you share with them?
Yeah. But it's just that it's very important. And so, right now, and I've been retired 2 years. That's another thing that I keep busy with, is I still have people who call me and ask for my advice on different things. Sometimes I'm like, you have another principal. but it's okay, because I enjoy doing that. I enjoy mentoring. In fact, one of the greatest things that I enjoy doing is when I help someone to grow or to advance in their career, like becoming from being a parent to a teacher, or being a teacher to an administrator. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy modeling it and sharing with them, and helping encourage them to move on, because that's what I had. And what I mean by seeking it, it's just that. It's like you cannot possibly think in this field, probably any field, that you could do it alone. It's tough. It can be, you're making, and especially at the administrator level, you're making decisions 24/7. And many times you have to make them and live with them. You don't really have time to ponder sometimes, And so you can discuss it and share it with someone, and you could, but there's a lot of times there's many occasions where you don't have time. You don't have a lot of time.
Right.
You have to do the best. You have to be confident in what you're doing and what you're saying and the decisions you're making. And honestly, my faith and the fact that I prayed about everything. I have to say that's one of them. A couple of people who I got a chance to visit a couple of my friends who got promoted this year. And I told them, do not leave your faith. If you bring it right there, you bring it there with you, and you trust God on everything. You bring it right into that building, because there's a lot in my career. I mean, I've had suicides. I've lost students to violence and sickness and suicides and things of that nature. But it's a lot that happens, and everyone is looking to you to be the calm one and to lead the school when these tragedies happen. And so you don't really have the luxury to you can't fall apart, and you have to lead. And so because everyone's looking for you to be just who you are, the leader. And so but there's plenty of people, maybe not plenty, but you have to identify who they are. Who you have to, because I won't say that there's plenty. Because but you have to identify who the people are that can help you when you're feeling overwhelmed, because there's going to be some times when you're overwhelmed, or when you're facing challenges, when things. I think I mentioned in my book, there's times when I put someone on leave because of this, that, or inappropriate. Those aren't really, those are things you want to just. I don't even want to deal with this, but you have to deal with it. It's your job. It's your job.
Let's since you brought up the book, let's talk a little bit about the book, and the reason, and I'll explain myself in terms of why I wanted my first episode to be with an educator, is because the experience that I had as a substitute teacher changed my life in grad school. And it's like, it was the perspective, and that's, seeing that from that side of the fence really changed everything of how I looked at our educators and kind of what they have to do. Like you said, all the things that you're going through on a daily basis. And so your book, you got together with some peers, and, Hidden Insight in Educators' Perspective was, it was a phenomenal read. And just getting the perspective from all of those different educators and administrators. And so, I want to dive into that a little bit, but I want to, you mentioned starting college late. And I wanted to touch base on this because I was just with a former teammate and he was going back to college, and I was so proud. But I also know that that's not easy.
It's not easy.
So talk to me, describe what that experience was like.
Okay. Well, just like you said, when you were a substitute teacher and it changed your life. Well, I was secretary doing all these little jobs, secretary, retail, and I started working in the schools as a paraeducator.
Yeah.
And first I was a substitute for the spring. I was a long-term sub. Well, then they hired me for the next school year. Well, it was so impactful. And it was like the kids were responding to me. I was enjoying it. It was the first time that I really, I was just like, wow. And I was one of those paraeducators that was very involved in the school. I was doing trips with the kids. I was sponsoring this group. I was really enjoying it. And at some point I thought, wow, if I'm going to do all of this, I should just become a teacher. Well, in the meantime, I'm 30 years old. I'm 29, 30 years old when I made that decision. And, but I knew, I felt the call.
Yeah.
I found a place, that I was really good at. I was like, this is cool. In fact, I often share with paraeducators that, teachers assistants that right now that are very active in their school. And I said, beware, because there'll be people that are being intimidated by that and wonder why you get results that they can't get. I said, I've been there, so I know it's going to happen, but you just keep going. You keep doing it because you're there to serve kids. Right. You're there to serve, you're there to support kids. And in fact, I was with, in Ohio, it's called, I don't know if they still call it that, it was SBH, Severe Behavior Handicap. That's where I started. Okay. So here they're ED, emotionally disturbed. So I was always with children that had behavior problems. And I often say, if that's where you decide you want to work, you really want to do the job.
Right.
And so, but anyway, so I went to school. I talked to someone, I said, I'm going to go to school. And I was taking 2 classes. And it was tough because at that point, I hadn't been in school since I was 17. Right. And when I graduated, and so I had to take some prereqs and everything. I just had not been to college. When I was in high school, I took secretarial classes, and that's what I was in a program where I was a secretary, and I ended up working at the bank, and that's what I thought that was my career path. Right. But when I started going to school, and I started, I'm in classes with, first of all, in most of my classes, I was the oldest, and I was many times the only minority in the class. And These were all kids. And it was like, it was pretty tough. And I was never, and some of them were very nice. I met some very nice young people that I wish I even knew where they were now. Yeah. But, and they were always respectful and everything. And I remember this one quarter that I went to school, and the teacher, it was during the summer, because sometime I would go in the summer because I wanted, it seemed so far off what all I had to take and everything. I was majoring in, first I was going for social work, and then I changed it to, after I got an associate degree, my student advisor, she said, no, you're not finished. You got to keep going. And I'm like, what? I'm going to get this associate and go. And so, but this one teacher, one time she saw, and this meant a lot to me, but she saw apparently how overwhelmed I was, because I remember, you know how this summer classes, you're just you're doing double, everything. Right. And it was getting ready to be the holiday. And she said, you got to do this, you got to read this, and this is going to be doing blah, blah, blah. And my facial expression must have been like, to the point that teacher called me. She called me at home. That was before cell phones and everything. Right. She called me at home and she said, Nelda, I just want you to know you're doing fine in class. I don't want you seemed a little overwhelmed. I mean, she reached out to encourage me. She said, don't, take some time with your family, and it meant a lot to me. And that might have been one of the beginning times when I realized that you need to seek help. I didn't seek help.
Right.
She came to me. But going to school with young people, and it was a learning curve, and to the fact that I went for a whole year, and it was some other things going on in my life too. But I left. I wasn't ready for it
Right.
mentally and emotionally. I wasn't ready for it, and it took me a whole year before I returned.
Got back.
Once I returned, I stuck with it. I did it. I got the associate. I got the bachelor. I did my student teaching in a position. So it was, I was doing it. A couple of times I had to take a leave from work because it was classes, you know how that is. There was classes that was only offered during this semester, or what, it was quarters back then.
Right.
So, but it was just, it was tough because you think, when you're that age and you're in school, you think, and I did meet some other people my age when I got into my major and everything, but you think, wow, I wasted. You kind of look at it as a waste of time, but it's never a waste of time. And so I can truly say to people now that you're never too old.
Yeah.
And it's not a waste of time. And so, it was quite the experience. And so a funny story, my brother and sister-in-law they celebrated her 50th birthday and their 25th wedding anniversary this summer.
Nice.
And they had a theme, Bruce. It was Bruce.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was a 90s theme, and everybody's supposed to dress. And I told them, I have no idea what was happening in the 90s. I said that decade, I was so busy. I was in school. I was raising kids. I said, I have no idea. Don't even ask me. So that was kind of the joke to natives to say I didn't dress in the 90s, but I was joking about it, but I was serious about it that, oh man, the 90s, that was tough. That was those years that I was in school and doing all of that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And I wanted to hear a little bit about that. I've listened to you talk about it, and I've read it in the book. And so, as we wind down for these last couple of questions, I want to take some time and, talk about Hidden in Sight, an educator's perspective. And so you got, I think, what is it, about 6 or 7 or 8 educators, administrators kind of combined in this book. What was the inspiration behind, I want to be a part of this project?
It didn't actually happen like that.
Okay.
When I was asked to do it, my first instinct was that I can't do that. What? Writing a book, I have no experience, and the person that was over this project, she said, you have a lot to share, and when I thought about it, I did have a lot to share. It wasn't even hard to write because it was just flowing. The reflecting part and realizing that, wow, a lot did happen. And I talked to my daughter and my daughter-in-law and told them about the project, and they both encouraged me for the same reason. They said, "Mom, you have a lot to share. You have accomplished a lot." Da, 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 da. And so I decided to do it. Reluctantly, I decided to do it. But when I started it, it was kind of therapeutic for me. It was kind of gave me an opportunity. I thought about some things that I hadn't thought about in years.
Yeah.
And so writing it was not the hardest thing because I was just sharing what I had experienced. What I started thinking of is that, not to boast or anything, but it was a story that I wanted to share with others because what I wanted was people to be able to resonate. I wanted it to resonate with people and to get the message that, that they can do this.
Yeah.
They can do it. It's never too late. And that regardless of the obstacles or challenges or whatever, that you got to stick to it. You got to hang in there, and you can achieve. When I became a principal, I had in my mind, I had decided that I knew then that I was retiring in 3 years, and then here they come with this principal thing. I'm like, what are you all talking about? I'm retiring. I'm not, and so it's never, you never could throw the towel in. You never know what's in your future.
Right.
And as long as you're that, but I did always believe my whole years as even from being a peer educator, things would always happen where I knew I wanted to do more to help kids. I just wanted to help kids. I wanted to be a support for kids. And so every level gave you an opportunity to do more for kids and to share more. And so becoming the principal was like, it was something that I had once. It's like, I wanted to do it at one time. It's just at that point, I was thinking that ship had sailed.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I enjoy the perspective from all the educators, and I highly suggest that read because it's just good. It's insightful to see behind, the eyes of what you all would go through on a day-to-day basis, and it's just good to have that perspective. And so, as I end every conversation on this podcast, what I like to do is ask you to. I'm big on giving out roses. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but pretty much you're giving your rose to someone that's meant something to you, whether it's your mentor or a friend or a peer. What I would like you to do is give out that one rose today to someone that's special to you.
Okay. Well, my family and friends were all very supportive and everything, but there's one person that when I moved here to Maryland, he was my principal.
Uh-huh.
And to this day, he's still my mentor. In fact, him and I were at lunch the other day with another friend of ours who just got promoted. And what he did and what he showed us and me, how much the job entailed. And it was like sharing and getting to know the kids and mentoring and coaching and all of this. He was the person that came to my classroom and handed me paperwork and said, you need to go back to school to get your master's degree. I'm like, what? I mean, I literally had I think it was like 2 years after I graduated and it moved here. And, but he said, he's seen something. And a lot of times you run into people that see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And he told me, he handed me the paperwork because we had a cohort in the county where, the county was taking care of some of this, and they had 10 or 15 people together, and we was all going for administration and supervision. And he was the one that did that. He was also the one that, those years, he mentored me right away without even, he mentored me and he coached me. He got me to go back to school. He supported me through that whole thing. And a month after I graduated with my administration and supervision, he promoted me because he wasn't no longer the principal. In the meantime, he had gotten promoted. He was the director, and he was the one that promoted me to be an assistant principal. By the time it was time for me to be a principal, he was no longer with the county or anything. But it was funny because, not funny, it's just that some of the years that I was in the county, he wasn't there, and I felt like there was times that I felt like I didn't have anyone there. But I could always pick up the phone. And I still pick up the phone. He's still doing the same thing. He's retired, just like I am. Except he's still mentoring. He's still coaching. He's still, encouraging people. And a lot of my style. I worked with two other administrators that served under him, and we all have similar styles. It was because of him, and his style and how he ran his school and ran I don't want to say ran the school, but just how he, how the school, how everything flowed under his leadership. And so we laugh about it sometimes because sometimes things will happen or we'll say something and it'll be a Roger thing. We all got it from him.
Yeah. Well, shout out and much love to all the mentors and the leaders who take time to mold us and share with us their stories. So they're very important. And so what I would like you to do now is, where can people find Hidden Insight in Educator's perspective?
Hidden Insight is it's on Amazon. They can get it from Amazon. They can, if they want an autograph copy, they could get it at my Cash App, $ Nelda Sims, and send me their address, and I'll send them autographed copy. I'm on every social media. I'm on Facebook. Well, I don't know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. And that's how they can contact me. My email address is neldasims@gmail.com. But the book is on Amazon. If they just want a copy of it, if they could get it, they can go right on Amazon and get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Sims. I know you're busy in retirement, so I'm happy I was able to steal a couple minutes from you. And I just appreciate you taking time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Thank you. And good luck to you and your podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to Under the Wing. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like to support the podcast, tell a friend or two, share on social media, or leave a rating and review. You can follow me on Instagram at Under the Wing with Andrew. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.